Today I'm reacting to your Monday Night Raw Hot Takes. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether they're good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. So if you'd like to be featured in the next episode of Hot Takes, make sure that you're following me on X because that's where I ask for your hot takes after every episode of Raw, SmackDown, and every WWE Premium Live event. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I am confident that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And don't forget, if you want even more content, to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. This week's podcast is already up there. The review of this episode of Monday Night Raw is already up there as well with footage so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So go ahead, check it out, patreon.com/SantiZap. Tons of content over there that never makes it here on the YouTube. I'll put the link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's read your stupid shit. I'm not excited about Damian facing Gunther again. We've been seeing way too many rematches lately, and I think that we need to see some other people get a chance at the title. Look, I totally understand your frustration. I understand that you're mad that Damian Priest is the #1 contender and not the rightful #1 contender. Ladies and gentlemen, Dirty Dominik Mysterio should be the #1 contender. He'd already beaten this bum-ass Damian Priest the week before. Clean, might I add. Why is he not the #1 contender? Why is the WWE persistent with their disrespect of Dirty Dominik Mysterio? Okay, all right, bias aside for a second, Damian Priest is the correct choice here. You know, you mentioned here that we need to see other people get a chance at the world title. In my opinion, Damian Priest still falls under the category of other people. He is still brand new to the main event scene, just joining it earlier this year, and on top of that, he deserves a rematch for the World Heavyweight Championship that he lost at SummerSlam to the guy that's currently holding the title because he lost it in a manner that really wasn't his fault. He got betrayed by his brother of the Judgment Day in Finn Balor. On top of that, let's not forget here, folks, that the match at SummerSlam between Gunther and Damian Priest was arguably the best match of that year's SummerSlam, and I absolutely would love to see them run it back. It's just gonna be a fantastic match. On top of that, Gunther's initial portion of his title reign clearly is about removing doubt, reminding you that this dude is a badass and an unstoppable beast and a monster in the ring general. And they're doing it by making sure that he defeats the people that there are doubts about his ability of defeating, like Randy Orton, who he had beaten at King of the Ring, but with many doubts, like Sami Zayn, the guy that beat him at WrestleMania. And now Damian Priest, the guy that Gunther beat for the World Championship, not clean. So once we can get through Randy, Sami Zayn, and Damian Priest, there are no questions left unanswered for Gunther, and then we can explore brand new opponents. We can explore brand new dream matches like the CM Punks and the Seth Rollinses of the world, but right now I think that this is actually the right call. They need to hurry up and pull the trigger on Xavier Woods' storyline. I'm okay with how it's moving because unlike the Austin Theory development of his face turn, that's actually going nowhere. That isn't getting progression on a week-to-week basis. We are getting progression pretty much every single week of Monday Night Raw between Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. That's a story that's actually developing. And it's interesting because it's not even just developing on Monday Night Raw, it's developing on social media platforms and on the WWE YouTube channel. So there's something really intriguing and something really rewarding for wrestling fans that have their nose in the books and following this storyline in every single platform that they possibly can. Is it moving slow? Sure, I can't disagree with that. We've been at this for several months, but it doesn't feel like it's stalled, especially like if you were to compare where the storyline is right now, where the relationship of Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston is at this very moment, and you compare it to just a month ago, it is entirely different. So maybe that's how we can look at the story. Just look and compare the progression of the relationship over the last several weeks, and you can see that there's actually been major strides in this storyline to move it forward. But I do believe that us wrestling fans are primed to believe that pulling the trigger or executing on something is to do the irreversible thing, to finally do the betrayal, the heel turn, the babyface turn. But progression and advancing the story doesn't always have to be just getting to that big crescendo, that big climax. We are seeing pretty solid progression with the story. Slow, but we're seeing it. Dominik Mysterio was slandered so much in this episode that it got me worrying about what the future is for him, because this episode basically told me that Triple H doesn't value him as a world heavyweight champion worthy, even though they gotta pull the trigger on him soon. So I disagree when you say that they need to pull the trigger soon. I feel like they can take their time with Dominik Mysterio. He's still really young. He hasn't even hit the peak of his career, and he continues to get better and better and better every single week, and is becoming one of the cornerstone pillars of heels in the WWE. Dominik Mysterio is just fine, and without a world title today, he's still just fine. I also think that you're wrong in terms of how you're interpreting them talking about how much they're downplaying Dirty Dominik Mysterio. If they weren't talking about him, if they weren't mentioning him or acknowledging him at all, then perhaps maybe I could see that as a worrying piece of evidence that they don't see future world heavyweight champion material in Dirty Dominik Mysterio. But the fact that they're going out of their way to tell you, the audience, that he is unworthy of this prize that you need to prove worth in order to be able to win is actually telling me the opposite, that they're going to eventually go down the route of having an unworthy champion that just keeps getting away with championship victories. And the way that he was sneaking around when Bronson Reed was destroying everybody and was buying his time and waiting for the right moment to try and get the pin shows me that they're leaning into that type of character, this unworthy guy that puts himself into beneficial positions for himself. And these are the types of guys that historically win championships and hold on to championships. Look at JBL, all right? That's a great example of what I'm talking about here. I hate that Europe gets all of March for Raw and SmackDown. Don't get me wrong, it's super cool for everyone in Europe, but here in the United States, we're gonna have an entire month of taped television episodes, which means spoilers will run rampant on social media during Mania season, no less. Okay, but just kind of put yourself in the shoes of our European friends and literally everyone outside of North America. They've been dealing with spoilers running rampant for them pretty much since the inception of professional wrestling. Well, yeah, of course they could totally watch it live at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. Most people wait until the next day to be able to watch Raws and SmackDown, and by then the spoilers are out. If they've been able to survive all of these decades, I think that here in North America, we're going to be okay with 1 month of potential spoilers. That being said, avoiding spoilers is a thing. You can absolutely do that. I basically live in the world of professional wrestling fandom online, and I'm pretty darn good at avoiding these spoilers. I wasn't spoiled on what happened on SmackDown or on Raw. Just avoid the spoilers, brother. Me personally, I like the fact that we're going to be getting an insane crowd atmosphere in this build up to WrestleMania with being in front of these European crowds that absolutely dwarf any sort of crowd reaction that we can give here on North American soil, okay? Those European crowds, they can change the vibe of like the most simple episode of Raw and make it into something entirely unforgettable. And now you mix that with episodes of Raw and SmackDown that are actually meaningful and are leading to the biggest show of the year, we're gonna get some absolutely legendary crowd reactions. I think that it's going to make for a pretty hype road to WrestleMania, but you know, if you can't avoid spoilers, dog, then dude, just close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Avoid Twitter for a couple hours. You'll be fine. Nonetheless, it's an interesting choice. I've personally never seen or recall the last time WWE did something like this leading into a WrestleMania. I'm wondering if maybe this is them kind of testing the waters with perhaps just doing a European soil WrestleMania. We'll see. Personally, I'm excited for this. I think that the trade-off of us potentially being spoiled isn't that big of a deal. Just avoid the spoilers, brother. Today's episode is brought to you by Turtle Beach, the #1 brand in gaming headsets and accessories. Their new Gen 3 Stealth 600 headset picks up so much crystal clear sound that I swear I heard a guy scratch his nuts on the other side of the map. You'll hear every footstep, every reload, every enemy sneaking up on you like they're stomping through your living room in tap dancing shoes, everything. Legitimately, they've been my go-to headset for gaming dating as far back as as like 2009 in the MW2 days, but they're also my go-to for working in editing and long streaming sessions. Not just because of their high quality of sound, but their overall comfort. To me specifically, considering this is my job, that's incredibly important to have the headset feel like a soft pillow around your head. What's also nice is Turtle Beach has the Stealth 600 model, these bad boys right here, which are for PlayStation, PC, and Xbox, including cross compatibility and Bluetooth. So that means one headset for all of your systems. So I can easily go from working on my PC, doing some boring editing, to ripping on my PS5 if I wanted to. They're also like the only wireless headsets that I've used that doesn't die after 12 hours. These bad boys right here, the Stealth 600s, they go up to like 80 hours. Whether you're a casual gamer or you're one of those fellas that hasn't touched grass in weeks, Turtle Beach is the right headset for you. So folks, get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach today. For a limited time only, head to turtlebeach.com and use code Santi for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off of your entire order when you use code Santi at turtlebeach.com. Thank you to Turtle Beach for sponsoring this video. Now back to the video. Raquel Rodriguez, ever since becoming Liv Morgan's bodyguard, what does she even do? Look, it's a little harsh, but I totally get the sentiment because she hasn't done a great job of playing the overpowered bodyguard that I think we all thought that she was going to play. A lot of us were comparing her to Diesel. Some people were even calling her Raquel. I wonder what genius came up with that. But they haven't really treated her like a Diesel Deshawn. She does genuinely sort of feel like just another person that Rhea Ripley has been running over. I really thought that Raquel was going to be the difference maker, the muscle, the one that made it so that you couldn't fuck with Liv Morgan without catching a couple of punches to the face. And that just hasn't been the case. Whenever Liv Morgan retreats, so does Raquel. I honestly thought that the whole point of having Raquel there was so that Liv Morgan didn't have to play that retreating evil character all of the time. So in essence, I actually don't think that Raquel has really helped develop the character of Liv Morgan a heck of a whole lot. That being said, I'm still happy that Raquel is there. I feel like we're better off having Raquel there than not. But I don't think that the expectations that I think perhaps we set on ourselves by having a beast of a person like Raquel Rodriguez around have been necessarily met. She just hasn't been the intimidating powerhouse that I think we originally thought they were going to make her. I think that a lot of people who say that they should put the tag titles on the Wyatt Six are wrong. They feel like a group whose job is to tell a story of vengeance, and that's fine because what they're doing with that is amazing. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like putting something materialistic like World Tag Team titles on the Wyatt Six entirely defeats the purpose of the type of character that they are. It's frankly the thing that kind of killed Bray Wyatt's Fiend in the first place. Because when you look at the Fiend, for example, or a group like the Wyatt Six, they don't feel like humans in the sense like you or I. They feel like entities with a larger purpose that is difficult to understand for the individual human that just strives for gold, glory, and popularity. When you all of a sudden have those entities go after something materialistic like a world title, then all of a sudden they stop being entities and they get brought back down to reality, and they just feel like people like me and you who care about materialistic things like gold, glory, and popularity. So to give anything materialistic to the Wyatt Six, I think is a giant detriment. It's what humanized the Fiend in the first place, and humanizing the Fiend in the first place was kind of what caused the downfall of the Fiend in the first place. So let's just keep the aura of the Wyatt Six intact by making them be an entity that's looming around WWE superstars and looming around the WWE locker room. Let's not humanize them. Let's not bring them to the same strata of humans that we are. Let them be these spirits and entities that care about the only thing that matters to them, which is, to a degree, something we don't even really understand or know or could explain. But if they go after titles, then all of a sudden I can explain to you what their motivations are. And if I can explain to you easily what their motivations are, then I lose the feeling of them being this overpowering entity. Great to see Lyra is getting a proper treatment and out of the PFC storyline. Listen, I'm really happy that Io won this battle royal, but I actually feel like the matchup of Io versus Liv Morgan is probably happening happening faster than it probably should. And I feel like it's because EOS Sky was the only right choice to win this match. Look, when you look at the women's division on Monday Night Raw, they haven't done a great job of building the division outside of the vacuum that is Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. When you look outside of that division, the women have just sort of been spinning in circles. Lyra Valkyria being one of those, being involved in the storyline with the PFC. And when you look at the other people that were in this battle royal, like the women's tag team champions, they shouldn't have even been in this because they're from Friday Night SmackDown. But brand split be damned. When you look at the women that are actually on Monday Night Raw, the only one that was getting any sort of development was EOS Sky. And even that development wasn't even singles development. It was tag team development. That being said, EOS Sky is a perennial main eventer with an incredible resume that could be immediately inserted into the main event scene whenever they want to. And because she was like the most available and ready person to be inserted into this feud after Rhea Ripley's injury, she was literally the only one that made sense. Had they actually given some tender love and care to the building of Lyra Valkyria while the title was stuck between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, then Lyra would have made sense. But her winning this battle royal would have just felt out of nowhere because Lyra has just been missing for so long and hasn't really been involved in really meaningful storytelling. So almost by default, you had to give it to EOS Sky. It would have been nice if Raw had been building the rest of the women to give us a more diverse pool of options for Liv Morgan. We will be seated for the reunion. First of all, this photo is hilarious. I'm so excited to see how this reunion is going to play out because I feel like they made the right call at Crown Jewel by having Roman's team lose because they didn't really have that cohesion. And I love that that lack of cohesion not only forced them to lose, but also caused the mistakes that happened between Roman and Sami Zayn. Like, to me, this is a perfect narrative that they're telling because the narrative now has to be, can these guys that have so many problems with one another put these problems aside to become a cohesive unit to take out the already existing cohesive monstrosity that is Solo's bloodline? By the way, I also absolutely adored Sami Zayn's promo. The fact that he stopped Jimmy Uso from trying to gaslight him and quickly reminded him that Jimmy was the one that super kicked Sami and caused Sami to leave the bloodline, that it was Jimmy that super kicked Roman that caused the Usos to leave the bloodline, and that it was Jimmy that super kicked Jay that forced Jay to leave everything. It's brilliant. It's just interesting seeing these contextual moments being interpreted one way by one party and a different way by another. It's also kind of what's driving the intrigue between that Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods story arc because they're interpreting their actions entirely differently. But I cannot wait for the reunion. I can't wait for the band to be back together. I can't wait for the Backstreet Boys to go back on tour. And I cannot wait for this episode of Friday Night SmackDown to see how all of this is going to develop because we're back in cinemas, baby. Dom was robbed. He already became #1 contender last week. That's what I'm saying. I'm glad people are starting to see that Dominik Mysterio is being disrespected and should be given more respect by the officials of Monday Night Raw and by the Monday Night Raw roster. WWE knows we want Dom in the title picture. The amount of teases we got in just this episode is unfair. Give us what we want. The people are talking. The people are protesting. The people want to see dirty Dominik Mysterio. This started out as a meme, folks, but now this is a movement, and soon enough, it's gonna be a revolution. You thought We Want Cody was a thing? Just wait until We Want Dirty becomes a thing. Dom deserved to win over No Pop Priest. You have no idea how heartwarming it is to see this many pro Dominik Mysterio hot takes on this episode. Genuinely is bringing a tear to my eye. Having Bronson Reed kill everyone in that match and having Dom hide in fear makes his loss not as bad. It's clear that he's now going to be a main event level threat and will hopefully get the wins he needs to stay there. It's in Triple H's hands now. Look, I do appreciate your optimism. I do believe that the Bronson Reed segment and him taking out all of these main eventers was a fantastic sign that Bronson Reed is here to stay in the main event. I love that he stood tall at the end of the match match, bloodied, smiling. It was a great look. That being said, I was also incredibly optimistic about when Nakamura lost his first match to Seth Rollins, because they also made him look like this worldly threat to Seth Rollins even after losing the first match. And then Nakamura would go on to lose again and then not be part of the main event scene and then just disappear altogether. I still have PTSD from that. That's why I'm still concerned about Bronson Reed. That's why I think that Bronson Reed should have just won the first match in the first place so that we can get rid of this fear, because I'm not convinced, even with how badass Bronson Reed is over the last couple of weeks, that he can beat Seth Rollins the second time. Look, I'm just not convinced in it. I hope I'm wrong. And like you said, it's in Triple H's hands now. Chad Gable versus Dragon Lee absolutely cook. They need to try and push Chad Gable, because if we're being honest, Hunter fumbled the bag with him after the feud with the Wyatt Six. He hasn't had anything to do. Give him an IC title run. More than anything, it's not that I feel like he hasn't done enough after the Wyatt Six feud. It's that it feels like the Wyatt Six feud didn't matter, because it's not as if Chad Gable changed his ways. If anything, he became worse, more obnoxious, more evil. So did the Wyatt Six really win the feud when they weren't really able to do anything with changing Chad Gable? I don't know. But the match absolutely did cook, and I do believe that it's leading to something big for Chad Gable, which is obviously a feud with Rey Mysterio, which is a feud that kind of has Chad Gable's foot in the main event scene, because it is Rey Mysterio at the end of the day. I just don't know that we need to say that people need to win IC and US titles in order to be successful mid-carders, because Raw has definitely demonstrated that with the likes of Bronson Reed, the Braun Strowman feud. We saw it with the Wyatt Six. So there can be successful mid-carders that don't need to win the IC title, because I just don't see Triple H giving Chad Gable the IC title anytime soon. And I just don't want us to hinge on Chad Gable's career being successful or not successful based on whether or not he wins titles. I feel like it should be based on whether he has entertaining and good feuds and great matches. The Uncle Howdy and Miz video package was fantastic. This feud will do wonders for Cross and the Final Testament. This was awesome. This is actually what I kind of expect WWE to do once they dip their toes into the world of not having to be PG anymore on Netflix. I don't think that it's going to be gratuitous violence. I don't think that it's going to be nudity like some people are thinking. I think it's going to be more dangerous feeling storylines and more real feeling storylines like what we had here. I felt the danger. I felt like The Miz was in serious trouble for his life in this segment. I think that this did wonders for The Miz. I feel like this did wonders for Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas, and definitely made me wonder, what kind of character do we have with Bo Dallas when he is acting heelish yet being the babyface of this entire scenario? It's really interesting what they're doing here. The Saudi Arabian crowd leveled up their game. I might say that it was better than France. It wasn't better than France, but they have absolutely leveled up their game. This was the best Saudi crowd that they've ever put forth. They were great at Crown Jewel. They were kind of better, in my opinion, on Monday Night Raw. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see the development of the Saudi crowd as like hardcore WWE fans, especially when you compare it to the first ever Crown Jewel, when they had people in dinner tables in the first like 10 rows, which was just weird. But now they're making noise like rowdy WWE fans. They got chants, they got songs, they're making noise for the women. It's been just a delight to see the evolution of the Saudi crowd. Jade and Bianca's breakup is being teased. Man, I cannot wait for Mania 41, Jade versus Bianca. And of course, it took a little weaselly evil heel like Liv Morgan to start to sow the seeds of doubt. Absolutely, folks, this is where it starts. Eventually, these two will lose the tag titles in a way that will cause a war between the two, and this is absolutely a WrestleMania worthy match that I don't think needs a title. It could just be these two wanting to destroy each other. If I'm a betting man, I'm willing to bet that the nail in the coffin of this feud is one of them eliminating the other from the Women's Royal Rumble, maybe in like the final four of the Women's Royal Rumble. That would be hype, but I cannot wait for this feud to truly materialize, and I cannot wait to see what this feud looks like, say, in the week before WrestleMania. All right, folks, thank you so much for submitting in your hot takes. I'll see you guys in the next episode. That's it. I'm done. Get out of here.